Oh, you hear that music and you actually just want to be back there, don't you? I don't know how you all feel at the moment, but we're going to share it and feel the love and nostalgia and pain. Look, we've had 9 episodes of the relaunch of Doctor Who now, with Disney's streaming reach and power and budget, an experienced showrunner in Russell Davies, and a successful production company, Bad Wolf. So why do I feel flat? Why do I feel nonplussed? Why do I feel I'm being spoken at during the programme? Yes, we review the tasty bits of the Dot and Bubble Black Mirror parody. We debate whether what we are being presented is actually Doctor Who. Do you recognise it? I mean, you might call it a good programme. You might say the production values are good, but is it Doctor Who? We will take a look at the ratings and we shall take a look at the mollusks in Classic Who, gastropods, etc., for a nice little quiet, tasty item, and see which one should be binned forever in our space junk nostalgic fun item. But I don't do this alone. So this week I'm going to bring people on who've been, and each panelist will come on according to how critical they were about this episode. So who's coming on first? What's your bet? Who do you think I'll invite on first as the most critical of this episode? What's your betting, everybody? Well, here is Gary.
Am I becoming predictable, Brandon?
Well, you'll have to spice it up somehow. I don't know. Surprise us. So
you know what? I'm wondering, should we be calling this the sense bubble today instead of the sense sphere?
Oh, well, we're
talking spheres and bubbles and round things
and puncturing bubbles and losing your place and not being able to walk and or talk and all the rest of it. I mean, I know it's weird, isn't it? I find it funny when the media lecture you on use of media, online social media, as if they want you to go away.
I mean, I think, of course, we're going to get into it all, and I think this is going to be a great show. But I mean, just Russell T. Davies lecturing us about living in a bubble sets new standards for irony.
Yeah. Anyway, just to warm you up, how did you find Callie Cook manage? Because she actually ran the whole blooming episode, didn't she?
I'd never seen her in anything, so I had no context for her. I don't know. I mean, it's really hard for me to separate my feelings about the character from the feelings about the actress.
Right.
So, I mean, on the one hand, I can say, I mean, Rachel, obviously, I'll be interested to hear her comments about the acting job she did. But for me, my distaste for the character, I think, makes me kind of unable to separate that out from the kind of acting job that she did.
Hello, Rachel. Now, Rachel.
Hi.
I will, once I've pressed all the buttons, I'm a little bit under the weather, viewers. So basically, I'm going to try and get everything in order. But obviously, Rachel's done 2 streams on the ratings, for example, and on the actual episode review. Mm-hmm. So please check them out. I haven't even had a chance myself yet, but I know they're going well. So please look at them, and I'll advertise you in a second. Rachel, do you know Callie Cook?
I don't know her personally. And I don't know any of the stuff that she's been in. This is actually the first time for me to see her. So, yeah. Okay. I mean, I thought, yes, the character was unlikable, very much so. But I thought she was brilliant at being able to pull something off like that, because that, with what she had to do, that's not an easy thing to do. And she's not even the lead as well. So in order to just lead an episode of Doctor Who like that, with having something around her head and trying to direct her eye lines and know where to go with those, that's very difficult. So she did really well.
Cool. Well, we're obviously going to go over all of this. So in order, remember, we've got Gary, Mr. Critical, Rachel just above that, and then we've got Hugh, who's kind of dancing around the middle area of the scoreboard. So hiya, Hugh.
I mean, I worry a bit like last week that I'll end up talking myself down, because I've been my original estimation has been going down all day.
Yes, it's interesting, isn't it? Some people on, if you live on Twitter like I sometimes do, you'll find people are actually saying, I've watched it 12 times now and it's brilliant, and you're going, God, I'm thinking, if you have to watch it that many times. And we've got Michelle. So Michelle, you are the least critical. So everybody kind of knows where we stand here. I'm in the middle.
I still have issues, so it's not like it's a complete pass on me this week.
No, and you've been texting me all day about that as well. So Hello, everybody. Welcome to you all. Please, if you've just discovered us, we are a channel that's done about 69 programs now. We started in December. I know, churning them out. So please, if you haven't actually been cheeky devils, away, man. If you haven't given us a subscription, what's stopping you from pressing a blooming button, clicking on your notifications and all the rest of it, and all the jargon I don't understand? Remember, it took me months to not to stop calling the thread the margin. Remember that one? So I'm hard technical. So please give us a subscription. We're trying our best, and we've got some lovely people here discussing what we love normally, Doctor Who. And while I'm just on that, so we do our saloons on. I do a saloon solo on Tuesdays in the afternoon, and I normally get a bit critical and analytical there with a few items. And then on Wednesday at 7 p.m, we have our panel midweek to do nostalgia. This week we're looking at Time Flash: The Web of Fear, and we're looking at the best master stories in Doctor Who. There you go. So please join us for Wednesday, 7 p.m. for that. Now, okay, I think I need to cue the music. We always start, you know what, with contentious issues, and we're going to start with, well, the end of the episode, really. Yep. Don't worry, that wasn't lightning like last week. That's just normal. So let's start us off. Oh my gosh. Rachel, can I ask you straight away, what did you make of the ending? Because I was jollying along a little bit. The pastel colours and everything was boring me rigid. I could argue that Rories of the Deep, everybody argues it had too much light in and killed the atmosphere. And then meanwhile, we've got Dot and Bubble, which was in daytime all the blooming time. I thought, well, hello. But the ending, the good old ending, how did you find that? Did you sleep well afterwards?
Well, I slept as well as I could, seeing as I've decided to annihilate myself. But, well, I don't know really what I make of that ending. My question is, was that kind of ending, was it really needed? It's just that we have come so far in the world since like the 50s, the 60s, working on our segregation and introducing integration. It felt like with the whiteness, I guess you could say, of Fine Time, and the fact that she was just disregarding the Doctor because of his skin color.
Yeah.
It was like, but we're way beyond that. So couldn't we, if we were going to do it, was there actually a different way that it could actually be done? I still don't like the fact that there was no not like pushback, but like an opposing opinion, or the Doctor perhaps defending himself or something like that. And, he just goes, well, you can think whatever you like. And it's like, well, do people think that way? I don't know. It's just such a funny ending. And
it surprised me, Hugh, because the Doctor apparently is about 1,000 years old now. He has seen racism and xenophobia and every phobia about in the universe, I would have thought by now. But it seemed to really catch him short this time, which I found weird.
Well,
I mean, how did you find the resolution?
I mean, I think the number of problems with it, that this seems to be when Russell had the bi-generation and the Doctor moved on from being traumatized, he now appears to have moved on to being 20.
Yeah.
And so he cries all the time, and everything's shocking, and he runs away all the time. And it just feels as if what Russell's done is written a role which is not the Doctor, which might well work in terms of that, but is a young sexualized male.
Weirdly, sorry, just to come in there, it was also one of his closest Doctor moments as well, but it was ruined by the laughing, the shout of anger, and then the crying. Sorry, just to bring that in there.
Yeah.
The other aspect of it is the ending was written in such a way that didn't make any sense in the program. So if they were the two people if Ruby and the Doctor were two people helping, what's her face, Lindy, then how did the other people get through? Why were they there, and why hadn't they already gone, ooh, look, a black man?
Yeah.
I didn't understand, Gary, how the Doctor and Ruby had been in that basement for ages, talking to Lindy online, so to speak, and nobody down there had said, "You're a black man, get out." So suddenly, out the blue, they noticed him. And everybody else is walking around. I mean, as you know, there's plenty of loopholes and plot problems with this, which is suddenly people got very racist. Lindy herself, I know she was about to block him, but she actually did listen to him for most of the episode, and suddenly it was only when he offered the TARDIS as a lifeboat, which he's never done properly before, really, that they just said, no, we'll make our own way. I mean, Gary, where did you stand on it?
Well, I mean, if we're just going to focus on the ending, I mean, I think that you can break it down. I mean, the ending was irredeemable to me, but you can break it down to the message, which is basically, I guess, kind of Russell lecturing us on the evils of racism by means of a completely racist episode. And then you can also focus on Ncuti's ludicrously over emotional tantrum, which is something the real Doctor, would never do. To say nothing of the crying, but I mean, to that point, to me personally, this episode offers absolutely irrefutable proof that whoever Ncuti is playing is in no way, shape, or form the Doctor. And then you have more plot holes, as Hugh just said, and that Rachel made reference to on her stream, which is the fact that the TARDIS is there. Then that just brings up a whole raft of questions, which is, how they got involved with it. So I guess they landed in the tunnels, and then why did they choose to focus on Lindy? Why couldn't the Doctor just get all the background on the social structure of that planet from the TARDIS information data? Why did they have to rely on asking Lindy all the questions? Not only how did the TARDIS get in there, but then how did the slugs get in? So just that last shot just offered up a whole host of new plot holes as well. So any way you look at it, at least for me, that ending just wipes up. But the worst offender of the ending is, of course, the kind of, the vile messaging that RTD is sending out.
And Michelle, RTD in Unleashed talked about this, that he was almost tested. I think I've got the quote here, actually. Let's have a look. I think the main response will be about the ending. What we can't tell is how many people will have worked it out before the ending, because they've seen white person after white person after white person. And he says on Unleashed, is it after 5 minutes, 10 minutes? I mean, gosh, what is this? Does he not think Doctor Who fans have a bit more about them? I have to say, when I'm watching a sci-fi, I'm not counting people. I'm actually just trying to get engrossed in the blooming thing. I'm sick of fourth walls being broken. I actually just want to enjoy the program. And I don't count black, white, Asian or anything. I think that's awful if you do that.
Mm-hmm. Especially when this is one of the most diverse fandoms also.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the most welcoming fandoms. I hate the ending.
That statement, Michelle?
I absolutely hate the ending.
What do you think of that statement from RTD, our showrunner, saying it was almost like a test of the fans?
And it explains what is happening on Twitter right now, where people are turning on each other because somebody said I didn't get it, and one person was ADHD, and he says I didn't realize what it was until the end because I have ADHD, and the people were all like, well, you need to you need to sit down and watch it better, you need to control how you think. And so we're seeing fandom again turning on each other like we did during the last era. This is not acceptable.
And there was so many.
Also, Brendan, you mentioned that it's just how he wants the fans to react. Clearly, that the full comment there, he talks about like the general audience. And so what I got from that is that, unless I'm misinterpreting it, that Russell's intention was, and what he was curious about, almost like kind of like a scientist like sticking a stick in an anthill to see how they react, is he wants the audience to question themselves if they didn't notice that everyone was white and against the BBC diversity quotas. So to me, it seems like for him, this whole episode was a Rorschach test so the audience can, determine whether they're racist. So, I mean, that's vile in itself, but it seems like that to me is just proof that he's writing all of this now for his own self-gratification and not for general entertainment.
Gary, if I had time today, I would have actually lined up every executive producer of Bad Wolf, every high up person in BBC and Disney involved in this production, and you may have noticed something. And you know what? You don't want to go down that road, but while somebody's being so kind of lecturing and smug and backslabbing about, we're following the DEI policy, I find it fascinating that high up, because this was all about fine time, wasn't it? It was all about the elite in the BBC, the elite in these organizations happen to all be a certain color. It is so ironic, that they're preaching to us and yet they don't deliver. But when you watch Unleashed, you can calm down because they have a lot of DEI then of people who run around, mix cups of tea and everything. So it's nice. You get the class system. Brilliant.
Well, also here's a comedy. This episode was supposed to be intended for something, I believe, for series 6. So how would that have worked out in series 6?
It just,
that means the ending had been completely changed then.
Yeah, I mean, and Ncuti Gatwa himself in his quotation said the final scene in episode 5, people will remember that scene. As the camera started rolling, it was the make or break moment. You have to dig deep and pull out something that will blow everyone on the set away. And I bloody well did. Now,
that's so arrogant.
Wow.
Sorry, it is.
Wow.
Aren't we lucky to have him?
Sorry. I hate that kind of big-headedness in my industry. I hate it.
I wonder if anybody told him on set, oh, well, you bloody well did, but that was nothing like the character you're supposed to be playing.
Well, from what RTD was saying, he was saying that what was it, that Ncuti had blown everyone away with delivering this monologue. Yeah, but this was the first thing that he filmed, and he was really wary, apparently, of giving this to Ncuti. And it's like, well, first of all, you shouldn't be wary about that because actors are supposed to be able to do that, just pull it out of nowhere in regards to that. But what are your misgivings about it? And, clearly he's either been told that or he's just being a big head. Sorry.
Well, he worked well with what he was given. The question is what he was given. The same thing with Jodie. Jodie did okay with what she had. The question is what she was given, and the same thing is for what he is given.
Yeah, like that speech, just analyzing it as a speech and how he did it acting wise in general, that was absolutely fine. I had no issue with that. Did my face go big? Was it great?
Yeah. We're all going.
I had no major issue with that. People seem to think that I did, but I really didn't. But it was just the reactions after, when she was like, no, I was just like, and then he did that.
And here's something to ponder. I was thinking about this after, is that because I'm sure that RTD loved making the points about racism that he was making, but I was wondering, because for most of the episode you think the point is about social media is bad, kids, get out of your bubble. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But then I'm wondering now, but the racism thing was only really kind of like there at the end as kind of the punctuation. So I'm wondering, was that really the point, the main point he wanted to make, and all the other stuff was designed to kind of lead into it? Or was the social media thing the primary thing, and then all the racism thing was just kind of like Russell's cherry on top that he had a few extra minutes that he could tack on in the end?
So I think if you took, leaving aside the ending and leaving aside how that worked, if you took that part of get out your bubble and avoid social media and think about what you're doing, that's what he proposed for season 6. And he's added on the end because of coming back and being angry.
But this is what's fascinating, because one of the comments he makes, I've just got it on the slide here earlier, is, and he said to everybody that this was there you go. There you go. According to Russell Davies, Dot and Bubble was an idea he pitched to Stephen Moffat during the Moffat era, but they couldn't afford to make it. Now, that's the only reason he gives. We didn't go very far with the conversation because the idea was literally too expensive, but you wait 15 years and here we are. So, he's been waiting to do this. He's got it out the bin. This is it, the Disney money. He gets it out the bin, this idea. And we've got another debate coming in a minute about how far is this or not Doctor Who. And if you're a brand new viewer, would you stick with this material? I haven't seen the ratings go up and down like a yo-yo. That doesn't sell it nicely to me, because that must be around 2011, 2012 when he had that idea. So it was around our London Olympics when this country was in a good place, actually. It was quite a happy time here. And yes, we then had 2016, and then it all started kicking off with lots of things, because you had the referendum, then you had lockdown 4 years later, then you had the BLM marches, and basically the media have all tried to kind of, absorb. But when he had that idea, what was the idea going to be then? What, they're just kind of online? And the other thing I was thinking of is, in Years and Years, he had a teenager in that, and she was obsessed with a phone, wasn't she? And she actually got an implant in her head. And he's obsessed with this online thing. So if he had an idea that is now 13 years old, oh my God, can't he move on?
It felt as if it had been done many times.
Yeah.
I quite liked it, but it didn't feel new.
I liked it as the critique of social media because, anybody remember a couple of years ago the Pokemon Go craze?
Yes.
Where it absolutely, as working in a tourist attraction, drove all of us bonkers because because they would put museum places as collection spots. So the Mary Washington House, our sundial in the backyard, was a Pokemon Go location. So we had to worry about after hours trespassing, and people would walk the streets, and my boss would go down and go for a walk to go get a sandwich, and people would seriously walking into her because they were so much followed. Gotta get it, gotta catch them all.
Yeah.
And then we're making jokes about, I remember, I wanted to take it, just throw it into the river. I went to an historic, we had a Jane Austen festival in Louisville, Kentucky, and they actually had a sign that said, no Pokemon Go. This is not a catch point. This is a private event. Unless you have tickets, go away. Because it was so annoying of people were getting reported to the cops because they thought that they were, being, stalking or up to no good. And because they were looking for their Pokemon critters. So this could have been like a really good critique of, pay attention to the world, know that there's a monster next to you to come and eat you. So that's where the ending just makes me so mad.
That's what, the ending wasn't noticed. I mean, if this was a parody of, what you've just said, we didn't get it in the end, because the bigger point he wanted, for example, ageism was mentioned. She said she only wanted 17 to 27-year-olds because old people are stinky. So he throws in an ageist comment. That's all right. We can have ageism. That's funny.
It's also
very
childish.
To me, that was a comment more about what Gen Zers think about different.
And it was meant to mock her and show how wrong she is, because here's a 1,000-year-old character saving her, because he's ancient. That could have been so good. That has so much for good social satire that I was really enjoying it until the ending.
He's not 27 though, so he could have been blocked. I mean, he was in the end dismissed for his skin color, wasn't he? Of course he was, because they mentioned voodoo and everything in the dialogue. It was disgraceful. But he could have been blocked because he's over 27. So the whole point of this game is he's not 27, you're blocked. Because she said I don't understand how she didn't just notice that you're one of the oldies, one of the stinky oldies, clear off.
Well, look, I mean, if we're focusing on the ending, which I think is good to focus on, it seemed to me that, RTD was being kind of like an equal opportunity hater. I mean, he was saying, white people are evil. He's saying Christians are evil or racist, and they all hate science, because when he was saying, I have a scientific way to get you out, they were calling it voodoo. But at the end of the day, my question is, what exactly? And again, I don't want to give RTD credit for being a good writer in this, because like I said, I think this episode was vile. But in your opinion, what exactly is RTD trying to say about racism here? That it exists? We know that. I mean, what point is exactly, and I'm asking this seriously, What point exactly is he trying to make about racism?
It's stinky.
Yeah, and it's disappointing. Sorry. I'll just mention this, and I'm going to come through the thread in a minute. But I can see, is that X-Man 577, another Rosa Parks episode, but this time made by RTD. The Rosa episode, I've said it so many times on streams that was a missed opportunity by Chris Chibnall to actually do something properly about racism, make it a two-parter. And sad to say that the young lad could have been kind of disconnected from the team, and it could have been horrific and very, very frightening. If you're going to show us how racism is horrible, I'd have used that episode a lot better than it was. But this, as we're starting to say, just seemed to come from nowhere when there were other points to make. And this is the problem with RTD. Somebody said in an article today that the episode we got last night in Dot and Bubble was about 5 Black Mirror episodes all smashed together, when instead of focusing on one comment, he throws them all in and hopes to see which one sticks on the kitchen wall. I just think it's a scattergram effect. He's just throwing messages at us and missed the point. The other thing is, like I said, it's ironic that the team who are making this have a certain kind of ethnicity, to be quite honest, while he's so precious about it. But it's also very rich when he goes down this road that why are you making a black doctor look weak at the end? Make your black doctor look strong. Make him look powerful. Make him empowered. Don't make him look as though he's upset by it. Don't make him look as though he's losing by it. Don't make him look vulnerable or helpless. If we're going to defeat racism or make a big point about it, don't let it look as though it gets to you.
And actually, in my opinion, in an episode that I would have considered to be more futuristic, why are we addressing this as something that is set in the future? Why can't it have been something that was actually set in the past? We had a perfectly good Beatles episode where we could have addressed it. We've got Regency, which is coming up, which can easily be addressed.
And Regency, the wealth of the Regency era was built on the slave workers and the might of the British Empire down in the sugar islands of the Caribbean, which were some of the most horrific conditions of enslavement was to be on a sugar plantation.
But while we come back to Rachel, the other thing was, at the end when he offered them the TARDIS as a lifeboat.
Yeah.
And he said, you can go to another planet and start again. Fascinating. If you watch Ark in Space, if you watch a lot of old Doctor Who, he's not, colony in space, all the rest of it. The colonists that, humans are like an infection sometimes. Humans spoil things. Isn't it interesting that RTD, while he's right on with the race message, suddenly just says to these people who are all white, let's remember, and elite, he's going to take them, he's offering to take elite young people to another planet that's empty to colonize it.
To further their infection, to further their tainted, despicable thinking.
So RTD is for imperialism. Suddenly RTD is all for all the things he's against. Do you know what? The episode just falls apart on logic.
Well, it's certainly got people talking. I mean, some of the tweets that I've seen have been talking about white supremacy. So it's been quite extreme, some of this.
Well, if you're against
it's not the world we now live in.
You're a racist, so that's the other thing. So obviously, he completely has windows into all of our souls.
Well, yeah. I mean, I said in one of my tweets, I got it here. So RTD was saying how long you got. Sorry, I'll say it again. So for goodness sake, RTD was saying how long you go before you notice everyone was white in Dot and Bubble, and I said, the thing is, I didn't care about it because I'm not thinking about that sort of thing. That's just me. And then someone said, found Lindy Pepperbean's Twitter account. And then I was like, hands up, I got caught. This you. And there's a giant picture of Lindy. And I was like, the accuracy is spine tingling. So basically they were saying you're a racist because of that tweet.
Well, all of these comments that online, which start out to me from, at least on their end, an automatic presumption that whatever RTD writes and whatever he says and however he says it is automatically valid and creditable because he's RTD and because he was the great savior of the show in 2005. Over the last week, I've been reading comments on reviews and forums with commenters offering their detailed explanations of all the myriad plot holes we covered from 73 yards. And it just boggles my mind, and it's already happening after a day now, how all these people are just desperately trying to carry the water for RTD in an effort to justify what he's doing. He must be laughing his butt off that everybody is scrambling around trying to make up for his scripting deficiencies.
I had that on my channel earlier on one of my videos. Someone said, I disagreed with almost everything that you said. Clearly you have your own agenda. And it's like, I didn't even think that negatively of the episode, but whatever. So I'm not conforming. So that's an
RTD
issue.
shall not be contradicted.
It's like everybody is turning into the residents of Fine Time. That they are the smartest, they are the best.
Well,
and instead of having a mirror yourself and going, oh, maybe, people can be different and have different opinions, and I'm vapid and I'm shallow and this is meant to be negative on me. There's like projecting it out in the world, like I'm residents of Fine Time. I'm so smart. I don't have, like the one person who's being condemned for being ADHD and for only sitting through and watching half of the episode.
I'm not buying into somebody in such a privileged position, so high up in the media, doing that message. For example, anyone in Britain knows that Cornwall's owned by Southerners, who obviously it's their second home, and of course, basically, that's their version of Fine Time. We know that there's elite schools here, and the elite get them kids schooled there to get them into some decent universities, to get them running the BBC, to get them running various organisations, and the rest of us have to just face the crumbs that are left. And you know what? He's telling me that he's got an issue with elitism, and yet he's part of that package. The BBC, it's been proven many times, they don't recruit working class people. They don't recruit many people from various backgrounds. They recruit an idea mostly. It's been proven, I don't know how many times.
We've come such a long way. I just want it to move on from the current way of thinking and addressing racism. And just progress from there, because we've just come so far. And it's like, why are we taking 2 steps back, 10 steps back? Sometimes that's what it feels like. And it's not the way about it. I think it's Morgan Freeman said that the way to deal with racism is to not talk about it. Now, is that the way to go? I don't know entirely, but I think there are different ways that we can definitely go around it. That's for sure.
Well, I think if you are going to talk about it, you have to talk about it in a more in-depth approach than this did, and that's the problem.
I agree.
There is racism out there. Absolutely, there is racism. No question about it. But it's a very different form of racism to what was portrayed here, which was sort of like 60 years out of date in many ways.
Yeah,
and in doing that, you do a disservice to what you're trying to fight, because you're fighting the wrong battle.
And he does a disservice. I'm going to bring the thread in because it's been on fire, and I don't want to kind of ignore that. So if anybody wants to kind of respond to any of this, well, I'll just go through. Hiya, Ken Parker. Blocked because she is not in her bubble. Go with that. People stay in their bubbles and don't see past it. Good concept. Dormant Assassin, is that? Why don't they get more BAME writers too? It's a load of... Yeah. Well, I think next year he did say they're getting a more diverse team of writers. But yeah, this year it's mostly him.
He's writing too much. I don't know how he's doing it, because as I said, I messaged you, Brendan. I said I'm right now rewriting a tour script at the Mary Washington House, and where every word matters. And I'm like, struggling, going back, second guessing myself. I can't imagine writing 10 of the last 12 episodes.
Yeah. And you've said in the thread yourself, I found the voodoo comment really kind of clunky. I mean, if you're going to address racism, voodoo, what the hell? What decade are we in?
Also, when they have an app that tells them when to urinate.
So
they're in the scientific community.
But this is what I mean. He was trying to insult his younger viewers. He wants Generation Zs, and of course, he's insulting them, saying you need to be told when to go to the toilet.
And also, in the South, there are a lot of people, white and black, who practice voodoo as their religion.
But
we might want to know what voodoo actually is.
Yeah, no, but this is the problem with making. Sorry, Gary. This is the problem with making Doctor Who so blooming American, that we're importing all this American stuff, and some of your issues that aren't our issues. Voodoo, Britain, what the hell are we talking about?
But to me,
and as I said, for some people, it is their religion. So you may want to know what you're talking about.
But this, to me, is just a continuation of the exact same thing he did in Space Babies and in the Jinx episode, where he takes these complex issues, and he reduces them down to like a single line that's in line with what he thinks. But he tries this absurd reductionism where he thinks he can boil everything down to like a single tagline, and that's all that needs to be said about it.
So the next thing regarding the ending with our doctor and the dialogue there, which is very relevant, and a lot of people have been talking about it today, is now some people online are saying that's a very doctor defining moment. Other people are saying if that's a doctor defining moment, we are stuffed. Where do you all stand on that, Hugh? Doctor defining moment?
I'm back at the fact that if this is the definition of the doctor, it's a young sexualized male who doesn't have a lot of experience, who isn't an alien, who's struggling to deal with the world. That's not a doctor I recognise.
No. Anybody else want to come in on whether it's doctor defining?
He hasn't been given material to be the doctor, as Clara would say, run you clever boy and be the doctor. He hasn't been given good, and I think he can do it. I know some people don't like his acting. I do. I think he's got the chance. The material is what is failing him and Mel Gibson. They have the chance to be very good.
He's playing himself. I mean, to me, we now have like an openly gay doctor who sees like a good-looking guy and goes, "Oh, wow," and then gets into like a little fight, with his companion over who's going to get first dibs. That was great.
Well, that's there with RTD Lieutenant also.
And then he's saying babes and honey for an hour, and his costume is now just an orange tea, and he throws this absurdly over the top tantrum, which the real doctor would never do. And then, as Rachel said, we get, how many episodes is this that we get close-ups of him crying? And as Brendan, as you said, apparently he's lived for 1,000 years without ever encountering xenophobia before, and when he does, he freaks out. So yeah, this is not the doctor.
So here's my question then, just to kind of continue this and see what you think in the thread. If we were playing Dot and Bubble, if we were online in that little kind of bubble ourselves, would you actually swipe left or right? If you were new to this series, this Doctor Who series, you weren't a loyal fan, you just discovered it. From the 5 episodes we've had this year, the Christmas one and the 3 specials, is it a program that grabs you? Or are you just hoping upon hope that it gets better? So I'm going to ask you, I'm going to ask the panel, where do you stand at the moment, judging it now? Because I feel as though, a bit like Jeremy, and as you know, we had our chat recently about why he's turning his back on New Who. Please have a look if you've not seen it, because he's quietly spoken and he talks an awful lot of sense. But basically, where does everybody stand? Are you happy? Are you thinking, gosh, if I was a casual viewer, I think this is brilliant? All I'll say, and it's got to be anecdotal at first, and I'll throw the ratings in at some point during this, but Jamie's mum and dad are casual viewers, and they just said, not for them. They loved 73 Yards. They didn't like this one. And that up and down is not how to build a momentum for a program. Rachel, can you get your head into the fact that if you were just seeing this program for the first time over the last months, would you be wanting to hang around?
I'd have switched off by now, I think. Yeah. Because I don't like being told in entertainment what to think and how to think. I don't like being preached at. And it's very preachy at the moment. Yeah. So yeah, I'd swipe to the right.
Yeah. Okay, Hugh, where would you stand on this one? I mean, honestly, you're not a Doctor Who fan. You've just discovered this series. Can you get your head into that?
So I think I'd be looking at it as an anthology show such as Black Mirror or Inside Number 9. And I'd be thinking it's not quite anywhere near as good as those, and it does go very preachy rather than being properly dark. I might give it some more goes just to see if that gets sorted. And given the fact that there's an ongoing story, I might last to the end of this season, so I'm nearly there. But I would be rating it much lower than certainly either of those shows.
Yeah, and as I come to Gary, George Pelope, if you want to answer this one, Gary, I don't understand this criticism. Would the panel prefer the Doctor to be asexual like in the classic series?
Yes.
My answer is yes. Yes. I don't know why we've gone down this rabbit hole. Go on, Gary.
All I'm going to say is that I would have dropped out as a casual viewer who wasn't like emotionally invested in the show over decades. I would have dropped out on the scene in the Christmas special where the doctor breaks out into song in front of the Goblin King. That is the one scene I would have gone, I'm out. This is just too stupid.
And we will discuss in our criteria. I mean, I've got points to make about the plot, etc., the repetition, and all the rest of it. Michelle, you as I introduce you tonight, you've got issues with this episode, but you've marked it, higher than everybody else.
And it's probably dropping right now too. I'm like, I'm some points here.
It's working.
Since I have been that fan, and I was that fan not too long ago, really, in the span of Doctor Who's history, and I was that fan who found Doctor Who by accident while channel hopping during summer reruns, and I instantly fell in love with Peter Capaldi. Being that new fan, I don't know. I don't think I would be hanging on, or if I did, I wouldn't be the fan that I am now. I was still wondering why this show has such the cult following. I wouldn't be that person who wanted to go in and see everything back. I would probably be hanging on because, again, my love of history, because I'm looking forward to the Regency episode. That would keep me going, and also because we're so near the end of the season. But I wouldn't understand the love of the show. I wouldn't definitely get the show either.
No, and as David Mullen's saying here, it's not scraping the depths of the Chibnall Whittaker era, but it isn't anywhere near as good as 2005 and 10, and possibly not even Capaldi's last season. Now, the thing is, there's so many issues here about whether it's right or left. I mean, one of my issues is he the Doctor? One of my issues is this even following the Doctor Who formula? Because not much, to me, happened in the episode. What normally happens is, you get used to 3 or 4 parts in the classic series and all the rest of it, and develops character, develops a setting. Here, he shows you the world, he sets it all up. Not much suspense. I've seen Rachel talk about that. Not much suspense, really. And then there's a quick kind of escape, and then you press some computer buttons and it's all sorted. And he's done that a few times with Space Babies and everything. This isn't Doctor Who, Rachel.
No. The resolution's way too quick, isn't it?
Yeah.
I would prefer some of the things that happened in that episode, like the concepts are there, the ideas are there, to have actually started a little bit earlier. That's what I would have preferred.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I wish we had blooming cliffhangers.
Oh, me too.
Yeah. I mean, you have reprehensible, what we assume are reprehensible creatures in terms of the slugs. We don't know, we assume because they're eating these people, they're bad, but they're bad people, so maybe the slugs aren't so bad.
Yeah.
But, I mean, on the surface, we have one group of monsters, and then it turns out we have another group of monsters that I guess the Doctor is trying to save from the first group of monsters. Who wants to watch that? I mean, the Doctor,
there was so much not resolved. For example, sorry, Michelle, the home world has all been eaten. And nobody seemed to be bothered. These slugs have massacred everybody. The other thing that I thought made it doesn't feel like Doctor Who is whether they're slugs, tractators, and we'll look at mollusks in a moment in Doctor Who, but they had no purpose really. It was the Dot that did. They had no voice. There was nothing about the slug. They were just slow-moving slugs. There was nothing about them. And good old Doctor Who monsters, whether they're in rubber or anything, tend to want the universe, grab the planet, change it to their way, and all the rest of it. And it didn't seem to do that. While somebody responds, I've just put the ratings up there, as you can see on the left-hand side, to look at all of the episodes now, all 9. And we've hit that interesting moment. Remember, episodes 1 and 2, I'm going to say 2.5 because it was the same night. Then it falls by 500,000. Then it goes up by 500,000. Then it goes down again by 500,000. We're playing with 20% of your viewing public, up and down, 20%. Now, we've been talking about whether it's Doctor Who. We've been talking about being lectured at the end. Do you think this plays into it? Because I'm trying to account for this spike and then trough and spike and then trough.
I have heard. Was there a big soccer match or a football match last night also in England?
No, last week.
Okay.
There was a big one, but it wasn't on mainstream television. So you had the European Championships, Champions League was on, but that was on 8 o'clock and not on terrestrial.
Okay.
There is no reason. There is no reason. I know people can say the weather. People can say, was there a football match and all the rest of it? But honestly, if you're a Doctor Who fan, how many of us are there? I thought there were a bit more than that. I do think it's not building to a climax. It's not building momentum. The talk of the town, if you look at reviews, people in the street, the media, they're not talking about it. And people can argue the toss and say, these ratings, you're putting too much on them. I'm sure, Rachel, you've seen this on your own channel. People go, you're putting too much on the ratings. You are obsessed. You need to wait 2 years. And then after that, when everything's settled, blah, blah, blah. Okay, then, I don't care. Forget the ratings. But nobody's talking about the program.
No one's talking about it. They're only talking about the things that are just really irritating them about it. And that's the messaging. And I think that puts people off as well.
Keep in mind that those people who are going, oh, the ratings, overnight ratings don't matter. When the ratings are good, they're the first ones to extol, hey, look how great Doctor Who's doing.
They tried to do that with 73 yards, I noticed. Yep. But that was just pure luck. And I just, I've lost my train of thought. It's fine.
Well, I never want to hear Peter Capaldi get blamed for dropping ratings ever again. I mean, look at this.
Well, some people are saying we owe Jodie Whittaker a big apology.
No,
I don't think so either.
No, we owe Capaldi apology. We do for a lot of things.
I don't mind Capaldi.
I actually, Bryn says, well, there's no rhyme or reason. I actually disagree a little bit with that, because clearly, if you look at the arc of those numbers, that they lost 200,000 people from episode 1 to episode 2 because people didn't like Space Babies. They were actively turning it off, because if they would have just, since it was back to back, if they would have just left the TV on and gone to do something else, those numbers would have been closer. That means people were actively turning off before or throughout episode 2. And the episode 3 number, as is the case with every show, is a reaction to how people felt from the previous week. Are they going to tune in again? Clearly, that bottoming out of 2 million for episode 3 is because people clearly didn't like episode 1 and episode 2. Episode 4, on the surface, it seems like it's the FA Cup numbers of televisions, like in pubs or bars or homes or whatever, that just happened to be left on. And then episode 5 is, now we're down back to, because people aren't liking what they're seeing. The one thing I'm really interested in, Brandon, last thing I'll say about this, is for episode 4, those +7 numbers that we haven't got yet. +7 and +7. If that 2.62 spike was just because of the FA Cup play out and people were just leaving it on, that means that people weren't necessarily glued into the episode itself, which would mean, I don't think people were going, oh, well, there was episode 4 was so much higher. That means the +7 numbers are going to be so much higher. I don't think that's going to be the case if people weren't tuning in because of the quality of the episode itself, if you see what I mean, if it was just a knock-on effect. That's why I think those episode 4 +7 numbers are going to be more in line with the drop from the other 3.
They might be. However, the word of mouth for episode 4 was actually still pretty good, even if people were confused by it. So maybe some people might have watched. I don't know, but it'll be interesting to see what it's going to be. I think the overnight ratings do tell us a lot, though. I think they do.
They tell us that it's getting, I'm just bringing in Archer Collin. The Sense 3, the most interesting analysis would include what was on either side of the show and ongoing viewing figures throughout each episode. And continued, how many of the views are just people who haven't switched off, as you were saying, Gary, after the previous item, or switched on ready for whatever's on next? Well, that's what we found with the Eurovision, because they got 7 million odd. And so that 2.6, 2.4, I think they dipped for the second one because people went to the loo. People maybe didn't like what they saw and needed a break. I know, talking to John Daly, there was no way he was going to watch 2 episodes together. There's a lot of reasons. I think putting them together was a bad move for lots of reasons. But all people can say, whether you're for the ratings or against the ratings, and I take your point, Archer Collin, but we've done 5-minute analyses in other streams. We've looked at every 5 minutes when people are dropping out. But if you see there, it's not building. It's not going anywhere. This series, with all the hype, with all the marketing, that's how I started my program, with all that Disney reach, it's not going anywhere. And that must be a concern. Yes, the figures compared to the 1% Club, the figures next to the news on ITV are fine. But I think they expected, and Julie Gardner said it herself, she wanted this to reach every part of the planet. They wanted reach. I don't think they wanted to be neck and neck with the 1% Club game show on ITV. I don't.
No, they want to be winning, don't they?
Yeah. Otherwise, you can make cheaper shows. You know, don't make Doctor Who because there's cheaper shows out there to make, and you could fill the schedules. So I think it's important that we actually then kind of pull together and actually say, right then, your judgment of the episode. Criteria 1 is what we normally look at, which is whether it's True Who, whether that was the Doctor, whether that was a good old classic Doctor Who episode. There's our normal questions. Is this True Who or Boo Who? Is it safeguarding Who? Is it following canon? Although we're not obsessed by it, but did it feel like Doctor Who? Does the Doctor have recognizable Doctor traits? Did that feel like Who? And I'll shut up now and move to Michelle. Michelle, it was the second Doctor Light episode. That's unusual. That's dangerous.
That is very dangerous.
But your scores for this one and how you felt about it being proper Who?
I don't feel like it was proper Who. I really don't. I think it's dangerous having 2 Dr. Light episodes back to back. And we've really had 3 episodes where the Doctor's not allowed to be the Doctor. We've had 1 episode where he's standing on a landmine. We have a 2nd episode where he's standing on there for 2 minutes, or in the episode for 2 minutes. Now we've had a 3rd episode where for the majority of the time he's on a Zoom call. Again, I think as an actor, he's doing well with what he's been given. But what he's been given has not allowed him to be the Doctor. We're seeing glimpses of it. But he's not allowed to be the Doctor.
Well, he's not in enough. But when we did have him in Boom, when we had him in Boom, it wasn't a story. It was standing on a landmine for most of the episode and him kind of amazingly working everything out just by chit chat. I mean, Rachel, True Who, Boo Who, where do you stand on this?
No, it didn't feel like Doctor Who to me at all. For me, what was really lacking from it was the suspense that Doctor Who creates. And it didn't kick in quick enough. When it did kick in, it was great, but we had it for 5 minutes, and that was it. You know, I wasn't too keen on the slugs. They were way too cute, and they weren't that threatening enough. And it's the crying that gets to me as well. It's the constant crying, and I'm beginning to think that, you know, this is stuff that's not actually written into the I was going to say stage directions, but it's not. It's the script directions for shooting. I don't think so. I think this is acting choices. This particular crying all the time. So maybe that's a facet he's going with, a vulnerability towards the Doctor that I don't think we've ever really seen. But okay. And the technology, like being the real enemy, really should have happened earlier. It just didn't feel like Doctor Who.
Go on then, Michelle. Where do you stand on this one then?
I was going to say I think it is in the stage directions to be this emotional, because in the free comic book we got from Time Comic, and they do a description. In the description, the 15th Doctor is described as the most empathetic and the most human of all the Doctors.
I got that more from Peter Davison's Doctor than I ever did.
Davison was, but he was the most human. But yeah, they say of all of the incarnations, he is the most empathetic and the most human of the Doctor. So I think this is a deliberate choice.
Because he calls everybody babes and honey.
Yeah.
So I think the crying is supposed to be he's empathetic and he's the most human.
It's just it's different ways of empathizing. I have no problem with the crying as an element of his performance, but it happened quite repetitively now. And so I was starting to, after last night, I was starting to think, right, what's the reason for the crying this time? Is it frustration? Is it disappointment?
Well, he's like me. I'm a frustrated crier. When I get really, really mad, I cry, but I don't do it all the time either.
I wouldn't have minded. Well, I'm saying this, I'm not quite sure, because as we said earlier, the Doctor doesn't normally do with a rant like that necessarily, but okay, because it's a racial thing, he kicks off and he's extremely frustrated. I'd have been happy with him shouting.
So the breakdown then is that there is that vulnerability. He still has that choice whether or not, and obviously the director has that choice. Those choices still have to be made. So I don't know. I'm just not getting that vulnerability.
Despite
didn't Shooty say at the end of the giggle? Didn't he tell Tennant that you need to go off for a good lie down because look at me, I'm now. After you do that, you'll be all centered and fine like me. I'm fine. I've gone through that. Yeah. And yet, right after he says that, every episode but one after that, he's been breaking down. It's like, how have you got, which, like, again, for me is an indication that this is just a completely different character, because how could somebody get through 1,000 years of encountering all the evils around the universe if these things cause you to break down and freak out?
Yeah. Kate Smash, good to see you. We Sense Sphere doesn't want echo chambers. No. So I'm always interested in different opinions. So as you say, you guys are literally hating on the 2005-6 series because you're missing context. Can you just elaborate for us so we can understand? Because I do like to actually explore and discuss how fans can come to different conclusions from the same episode. For example, most fans would say Tomb of the Cybermen is a classic, Robots of Death is a classic. Yeah, most fans would say there's certain ones. But in this present era, it seems to me you've got a very polarized fandom who are saying that was absolutely amazing and one of the best episodes ever. And then you've got other people saying it's not Doctor Who. So please, if you can just explain that, because obviously I can't read people's minds. Hugh,
yeah, the other thing obviously is that most fans would say the Time Monster is a pain to watch and they'd never want to watch it again. You know, there's lots of really crap bits in classic series. There's crap bits in the 2005-6 series. There's crap bits now. I don't think that's it. Is this Doctor Who? Again, for the first 30 minutes or so when he was doing the Zoom call, I was perfectly happy with that. It's not a million miles away from Blink. It's a changing perspective to someone. Oh, white blonde woman. There we are. Then was Carrie Mulligan chosen because it was being racist? I don't know, but then to suddenly switch into the end whenever it's an utter mess in terms of plot and it's an utter mess in terms of the Doctor no. So originally whenever I replied to Brendan, I said it was good because I did like that first 30 minutes. Thought if you're going to do a Doctor Light episode, it's okay. But the end just keeps on bringing me down.
Gary?
Well, I said before, I don't think that this is actually all proof to me that this is not, whatever he's doing, it's not the Doctor we know. I would like to respectfully disagree with the person in the chat who said that we were kind of slagging off the 2005. I don't think that we've been doing that at all. If anything, you know, those of you who watched our midweek show where we were talking about Silence of the Library, and please watch the midweek show where we kind of gush all over classic Who and previous New Who. When I rewatched Silence of the Library for our review, I also rewatched, you know, Forest of the Dead, and I actually just decided to rewatch Midnight since it was the next one on the disc. And that one was obviously written by Russell T Davies before he lost his mind. And to me, there is no comparison between the script of Midnight and the scripts for 73 Yards or Dot and Bubble at all. It's like if you were to ask me, do you think these were written by the same person? I would say no way. So I don't think because we might be criticizing whatever this era, this post-60th era is, I don't think we're equating it to retroactively using it to knock out, you know,
Yeah, I mean, Crimpling here, it would have been better if Ruby was living in the bubble world. Isn't it funny, Crimpling? 2 weeks ago, we said, wouldn't it have been better if Ruby stood on the mine? And now we're saying it would have been better if Ruby was living in the bubble world. A bit like, I suppose, when it was Bad Wolf and Chris Eccleston got in the Big Brother house. And obviously, poor Billy Piper was about to be exterminated by the android. And there was great suspense and peril there. But have you all got a problem with this as a piece of entertainment that they were literally not involved? They were literally just on a screen. I mean, it's limiting an actress, isn't it, Rachel? That you are just on a screen. You're not being that physical, really. You're not really in the plot. You're just giving lines until the very end. I think, again, this was a big mistake, I personally think, in engaging people, building suspense, because the Doctor and Millie aren't in danger because they're just stood on a screen just yapping away.
It's so gutsy. I will say, doing that sort of thing. Hi, Cinnamon. It is very, very gutsy indeed. So this distinctly reminds me of something that we have in our industry called self-taping, where we do auditions just on our phones. And we have to sort of angle ourselves, but they're looking directly into the screen, but we have to angle ourselves to look just slightly off of the screen. And then we have a reader read in, and they're either reading in through another device, or it's someone who has very little to zero acting experience. It's such a difficult thing to do. And actually, I picked up something here, maybe not so much with these actors on the screen, but definitely with Millie and with Shooty. I don't know if they were working with reader-wise someone who has experience in acting or not, because some of it fell a little bit short, because acting is all about reacting to someone, and they're looking directly into a screen, so they have nothing really to react and bounce off. And if the reader is a little bit, flat and not putting anything into it, it can take all of your energy, and it can really sap it sometimes if you're not careful. I wonder how many times they rehearsed it with the reader as well.
I mean, I did laugh hard on Millie's face when the guys got Ian. She had a really good face. I know Retro Doc, you didn't like her acting in this one. I laughed so hard on the reaction shot of one of the guys getting Ian.
I just thought it was flat, and once I noticed it, I kept gravitating to it. That she was just kind of reading, like Rachel was just saying, reading without like emoting. Maybe the format didn't allow for it. I do have to say, I like this guy who reminded me of Rick Astley. I kept thinking, so I'm thinking maybe they should have called this episode. Maybe they should have called this episode "Never Gonna Eat You Up." That actually might have been a better.
He felt more doctorish to me.
Yeah, well, this is the point. He was involved in the action, and he had a bit of context, didn't he? Because he said, I've been making videos to warn you all, but they've been deleted. And this is where I keep thinking, so the Doctor and Ruby were on some screen, and they could access plans, and they could access the online social media, but they couldn't see his deleted videos, and they didn't know that he was actually doing more than Lindy, so they could have contacted him to actually do something.
And then he changed his name, too. They should have seen the database of the names.
Thank you for that, Michelle. That was another, I know we're not doing plot holes yet, but since Michelle brought up, I've got to say, was anybody bothered by the fact that this AI dot, which presumably is connected to the entire planet-wide database with information on every occupant so they know how to kill everybody alphabetically, that didn't know his real name?
Yeah.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, that was it's Russell just doing a really, really lazy piece of writing.
And again, it could have been a good social commentary on YouTube and social media censorship. But again, there was the germs of what could have been a really good episode. So that's why it's so frustrating, because I can see it. There was good germs here. There was good ideas here.
But isn't this the point? Because as I said, I called it a scattergram earlier. Basically, Russell Davies thinks in events and issues at the moment, and he's listed them like a weak teacher who actually thinks I've covered everything in the lesson when they haven't. They've mentioned it. And so basically, he throws them all at us in a script and assumes it will all kind of pull together. Rather than thinking, do you know what? Let's prioritize. The main thing I want to get across in this episode is how the younger generation are disconnected from their world, blah, blah, blah. So I'm going to drill down on that. And it would have been much more interesting, but he surely, panel, he could have still done this disconnection thing without the Doctor and Ruby being hidden away. I know he wasn't available, but that's not the point of the story, is it? Why couldn't they have still been interacting and been there? Because there was no tension about these slugs in many ways anyway. Never mind. The Doctor was never in danger. The Doctor got a racial slur at the end. That was the only danger he had. There was no danger.
Literal violence. There was literal violence at the Doctor.
I'm finding it.
Attack of the script. Oh, that would be a good episode.
You know what I honestly thought, and tell me if, and I'm being serious. I have to keep saying I'm being serious. I actually thought that when Rick Astley shows up in the alley there, that was going to turn out to be like a projection of the Doctor. Like he was using that form to lead her out of danger. I really did, because I'm thinking that he knows that that's like the only guy that she'd respond to. So he took that like an overlay, like it was like an AI overlay or something to get her, and then he would dissipate and it would be the Doctor there. I actually thought that for a few
I wonder whether in the original idea, which Russell pitched back in 2010 or whenever it was, whether that was the case, that the Doctor was actually that.
At the end, when she turned evil, I thought that she was more tied to the slugs than it was. I was really expecting this planted announcement when she turned 180 from just being a vapid, sheltered, 20-something to this really evil person. And I thought, okay, there's going to be some plot twist of maybe she's a slug in disguise. Who knows? Trying to, get this home. Because I was trying to figure out, why are they eating everybody on this planet? What is their purpose of taking over this world?
Now, Rachel,
they weren't. Well, my interpretation of that was, for some reason, the dot had them eating people. I don't understand, because it could obviously kill people, as was pointed out. Yeah. But it seemed to me that they seemed to be deliberate uses, which has its own problems and stuff like that. But I quite liked them because it felt old-fashioned crap monsters.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say to Rachel, because I just flashed up that screen again about whether it's true who or boo who regarding that criteria. I know you were talking about the killing of Richard Coombs, about his death. Because this was at what, 6:50 around that time.
So the watershed's 9 o'clock. Here in the UK, it was now I'm not going to lie, that whole entire bit with the with them in that room and the Doc going absolutely bonkers was actually the best bit of the episode, and the actual Doc doing what it did to him, offing him in that way, was brilliant, absolutely fantastic. But I had a slight issue with it because it was very visual, and it happened before the watershed, and it was going through his head. And it's like, so why did that happen on something that is considered if it's at an earlier time in the UK, it's considered more suitable for younger audiences, like say like 6 Up or something like that, because some of them may be up till 7:30 or something. I think Mary Whitehouse would be turning in her grave at that one.
It reminded me of that movie Phantasm. Remember, with the little floaty ball?
Yeah. Yeah. Know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we had the conversation about violence in Doctor Who in one of the many superb programs that Brendan's made on this channel, and there are deaths which feel, obviously you see people being exterminated by the Daleks, but that feels like science fiction. This felt science fiction, but also quite visceral. in every sense.
I couldn't figure out why when what was her name?
Lindy.
Why when Lindy is standing like about a millimeter from that slug for about like a full minute, and she can't move. Yeah, why it didn't just reach out and grab her? It's like, okay, she's not moving.
I think you had to walk into it, like completely walk into it.
Oh, yeah,
it was waiting for someone in the alphabet. She wasn't ready yet.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
Oh, that's it. And also, they were so like, because I see that when I was in college, where I'd be walking and people would actually walk into me because they weren't looking up from their phones, like, "Hello, I'm 5'11", you can't see me."
Yeah. Okay.
You see, it seems to me in a lot of episodes recently, the Doctor, when he's in it, is guessing what the solution would be. So when they were talking about why she wasn't attacked by the slug, they were kind of just verbally going, it's probably because of this, because of the way the AI works, it'll be done. And he said, isn't it amazing? And he talked about the alphabet. And I just thought, oh, for God's sake, there were so many things where it was just rushed. And it's that kind of patter. And
well, on top of that, so I agree. And I think Russell Davies has always tended to have the Doctor have problems solved for him. Sort of like, say, in the TARDIS and Rose, he doesn't solve the problem with Daleks. But also, if we are talking about how long did it take the viewers to notice that everyone was white, how long did it take Ncuti or the Doctor to notice that everyone was white? Because he doesn't. So that's Russell saying that the Doctor's racist, I think, by that logic.
Yeah, there's a lot of actually, Colin here. Did we ever actually see the slugs move? I'm trying to think. We saw them move slowly, did we? I'm not quite sure. Hello, Cinnamon. I don't think. Let's have a look. I don't think the twist works because it relies on you caring. And that's a good point. And I did actually was thinking along those lines. Right, the Doctor and Ruby aren't in danger. So there's no suspense there. Lindy, you start to dislike. I didn't even like her in the beginning. She's a narcissist. She was meh. She was kind of so bothered about herself. It's just a bore. So I couldn't relate to her at all. So as some of the panel have said, it was Ricky September. He was the one you related to.
Mm-hmm. That's why his death was so shocking. He's like, oh, he's the only good person on this stupid planet.
Yeah. So let's have a look. So let's kind of jazz this up slightly. As you know, we like to do nostalgia on this channel as well, and we like to mix up the tone. Remember, on Wednesday at 7 p.m, Time Flash, The Web of Fear. Come on, that's one of the classics. Join us and tell us your favorite bits and when you first saw it, and how much you lament the missing episode, and whether you like the animations. And then also, we're going to look at the best stories with the Master. Is it 70s? Is it 80s? Or do we go further up? I don't think it's a Doctor Who movie. So what will the panel say on that one? So Master, stories, and Time Flash. So let's just kind of lighten the load for a second, and everybody's got an opinion on this. This is about these slugs and mollusks. So let's have a look. Yeah, basically what we're going to bin out of all those. So I'm going to just put on the screen. I'll just put it up first while I'm just collecting it in the thread. So I want everybody's opinion in the thread and on the panel. Basically, if I just put this up, and one's Ricky Gervais, he doesn't count. But basically, slugs and mollusks in Doctor Who. And I know the Fendal looks like that. You've got there the gastropod, you've got the giant maggots from Green Death, you've got Image of the Fendal there, you've got the Tractators from Frontiers, and Ricky Gervais. Where do people stand? So because I can't see you at the moment, I'll just get the screen up. Rachel, where would you go on this one? Who would you bin? Who would you bin? And we don't want to see in Doctor Who ever again. And you can obliterate nearly all of them, and then we'll see what's left, if you get my gist.
Oh my gosh, I can't remember the names. You know, I'm not very, very good about the names. What are their names?
So you've got the gastropod from Twin Dilemma.
Yeah.
You've got the giant maggots from Green Death. You've got the Fendal from Image of the Fendal, and the Tractators from Frontiers.
Twin Dilemma.
Would you bring them back?
I'd bin it.
You'd bin that one. Would you bin the? I mean, my decision's quite clear. The Tractators moved slowly, although they did speak, so we knew they had a purpose and all the rest of it. The giant maggots didn't speak. They were just a kind of use for one or two of the scenes to actually bring a bit of suspense when they travelled around the mine. The Fendal, to me, is obviously the most interesting creature there to possibly bring back. But I'm just putting it out there, Hugh.
Right, I bring back the Fendal. Sorry.
No, it's all right.
Ferocious.
And it's, well, we've got it out now, haven't we? Season 15. So we've got Cinnamon bin the gastropobs. They didn't move much. They had an interesting slug trail. Hugh, you can bin them. Well, you can bin everything except one. What would you keep?
I mean, so I'd just bin the entirety of the Twin Dilemma and get rid of it from my entirety of my brain. So there's that. I quite liked the Tractators. I thought that was quite clever, and I liked they had a purpose, and the fact that they're not just being sluggy about and stuff like that. There was more personality in their sluggishness.
It's interesting what people are. Yes, I should have had Syl. I agree. I've not been on top form today, so yes, slapped wrist for me. I could have had Syl up there. So we've got people saying bin the Fendal, bin, as Cinnamon says, the gastropods. Ken Parker agrees, bin the gastropods. What was so bad about them? I liked the fact that their mind was so amazing, and Colin Baker's doctor was aware that it was dangerous for, your brain might be like a pebble in our ocean type thing. There was something like that, wasn't it? There was a metaphor.
We just have trauma from that episode, period. Especially after we needed therapy after Cage of Vanazani, and I think we need therapy more for Twin Dilemma.
Right.
The shocking rewrites.
You'll see we're being fair. We can knock present Doctor Who if we think it's worthy of it, but we can do the rest. Gary, where would you stand? Is there anything you'd keep?
I've kind of lost the question. Is it like, would we bin one, or which one would we keep?
Actually, I've been very cruel. You can bin most of them, but keep one.
Oh, so we can keep just one.
Yeah, I'm not sure there is.
I totally agree with you. I would bin the entirety of Twin Dilemma. I would. Boy. I mean, the Fendal is one of my favorite stories. But Tractators to me sound like tater tots, and I like tater tots. So I'm not really sure. I might want to keep it just for that. I would keep the Fendal.
Did you have a problem with their movement as well? I mean, it was a very good story, but did you have a problem with the Fendal movement? Because this seems to be the problem with these mollusks. It's the movement of them. They're not threatening. I think we've been seeing...
Fendal reminded me more of a snake than a kind of a slug, the way that it kind of like almost was like walking on its tail and kind of moving down. So, I mean, if the ones up here would be the ones to choose from, I think I'd pick the Fendal to keep.
Okay. Michelle, where would you stand?
I would go with the one from the Twin Dilemma. I love the Gravis. Of course, I have way too much soft spot for the line. You can't have a Gravis on the console. So I would like to see the Gravis come back. In fact, I almost thought that the Gravis or the Tractators was going to be what we're going to have for the slug people. I thought we were going to get a modernization of them, because they are creepy. They're taking over this planet. They're using natural forces to try to take the planet over completely. They've done it on more than one planet. So yeah, I like to see more of these little roly-polies.
Now, since I made a mistake, and yes, I did intend to put Syl up, would you like Syl back as a character?
Creepy. Oh yeah, Syl. Yeah, he's creepy little bugger.
Yeah, I mean, it is a problem with Doctor Who monsters, as Hugh said. They're almost funny monsters, aren't they? Because you can see the silliness of their movement or whatever. But that's classic Doctor Who in many respects.
I presumed that the slugs here were a sort of tribute to that, given how they didn't appear to move and appeared to have no brains, and
almost like a B
give
movie.
Props that it was a physical effect. They were actually people in costumes. There was CGI, but there was people on.
Yeah,
I will give the fact that there's been a lot of practical use, and it's not been CGI'd up to the hilt on this season. There's been a lot of practical effects, so I will give it pluses for that.
There was, and we'll come to criteria 2 now, but there were 3 men in that, 3 puppeteers, and it was an amazing concept. You can see the legs there as they're chewing somebody up. I mean, and did you see? I'll have the shot in a minute. Did you see that RTD designed them?
Yes, they were too cute.
But is this copyright again? I mean, he invented the ood. I know he's a good drawer. Of course he is. And he drew them and they've designed, I mean, different drafts of them. But, oh, he's not daft, is he? He's got the Hooniverse. He's got spin-off shows. He's the master of all this lot. Ching, ching, lots of money. And he's inventing some of the monsters. Wow. I tell you what, he's no mug.
No. Just that shot in terms of where Lindy's gone, which is, she says, "Take me to a hiding place." Why is the dot taking her to a hiding place? What does a hiding place mean in that world?
You're spotting another loophole as well. Why doesn't the dot just think? I mean, if the dot hates them and the dot's worked it out, it's going to kill them all. Why is it making it easy for some of them to escape? Why is it making it? Yep. Why are so many in the basement already? They've actually been successful.
And without the doctor, people who don't even know how to walk either. And now again, this had good potential of people being so tied to their phone that they do lose basic function features. You know, that they don't know how to interact in the outside world. And when we see things online right now, we're debating the validity of videos when it's playing. You can see that it's a real video.
Brendan, like RTD said last week, for all these plot holes, this is where we're just supposed to use our imagination.
I'll tell you what, I won't knock it though. We had deaths. We had a lot of deaths. Really, I like a few deaths. Lots of people being killed. Doctor Who needs.
Yeah, but they were racists, so it doesn't count.
Yeah, these are all that's all right. We're getting rid of them. We'll leave Susan Twister.
Yeah, you know, wouldn't this have been the episode for Russell to bring back the space racist from Rosa? This would have been the perfect episode.
Especially because he wants to compliment all of Chibnall's work. Yeah. Now, criteria 2, as you all know and love, is all about the production values. That sounds a bit dry, but I just linked it with our point about the making of the monsters, for example. Our panel, just like you in the thread, aren't going to judge on every criteria, the director and all the rest of it, or the music, etc., etc., etc. You will judge it on what you think has lifted this episode. And like I said, we try to be fair. We're not just going to slate an episode necessarily anyway. They are good points. Where we are conflicted half the time is sometimes the story doesn't hold up, but the production values are high. Gary, where do you stand on production values and our criteria for this one?
I think the only thing that I rated in all this on the production values was the slugs. Not because I thought they were cute, just because I thought, well, that's, you know, not a bad design. It, especially since it's the first monster of the season. So maybe the only monster of the season. So no, the slugs I thought were good. I thought that I got really tired really fast of the color scheme on the show. All the pastels and the little floaty bubble, everything was turquoise. That was like, I would hate to live in this world with that color scheme. I did like the grass though, in this scene that you're showing. I mean, that I could easily see myself, bending down and touching.
But I mentioned earlier on choices, like the director's choice, they choose the set. This looked like a uni block of flats. This looked like Keele University. This just looked like, it just looked a bit ancillary. And having daylight as well. Daylight. I mean, I think those creatures are pretty good, I have to say. And the sound they made was brilliant. And all the tendrils and everything. But in the daylight, why?
Yeah. And this would have been much better if they'd said it at night.
I think so.
I think they're trying to say that this is like the sugary, nauseatingly happy place. So everything is bright and colorful, and because again they say about the weather, it never rains or whatever. That they're trying to fix the satellites always have this sugary good, like disgusting anime world on steroids.
I did like also the Willy Wonka boat they got in at the end. That reminded me of
Jungle Cruise. That's Jungle Cruise.
Yeah.
With the waterfall. I'm like, okay,
Yeah,
well, we got this from.
But you see, I was trying to work that out at the end. I thought, the doctor's obviously finding it disappointing that they won't listen to him and take his help. And then they disappear, like you said, Gary. I thought it was like Willy Wonka. I know, Michelle, you told me it was the Disney jungle ride thing. But basically, they disappeared away. And that was it. I mean, there were so many loose ends not followed or guided. I mean, should we see evil, nasty people get their comeuppance? I mean, for example, in the visitation, and again, the thing I found problematic about the doctor being so concerned was that when the Peter Davison doctor in the visitation with the highwayman character, that Michael Robbins, there was a point when he just said, "Oh, I'm going to do my own thing," and the fifth doctor said, "Look, watch out for this, watch out for that," and of course the highwayman said, "I'll do it my way," and then I think the fifth doctor was, "Well, please yourself." He didn't cry and say, "Well, why are you not listening to me? I know better than you." The doctor's always had people who don't follow advice and walk straight into a laser or something. I mean, it's happened. There's been people who've died in episodes and he's given them advice. I really don't know why this was a problem. So let's have a look. What about the director? Because the director did this one and the previous one, didn't they? And a lot of people were saying the shots and how they actually executed this was pretty good. Rachel, were you impressed with the direction?
Yeah, the direction was fine. Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, everything should be storyboarded. So the director would have had that to go on. The actors would have had that to go on as well. So it would have all been laid out. And then it would just be up to the director to bring it to life. And whilst I don't think... I'm sort of middling with this episode, but oh my gosh, I keep losing my train of thought tonight. Sorry, I shouldn't hit my hip. Sorry, come back to me. I'll get it back in a minute.
That's me tonight, I have to say as well. Yeah, when you feel ropey, you're in the middle of an idea. So
yeah.
I mean, Hugh, are your marks for this one? I mean,
I thought it was quite good. I think there are, I could be critical about the fact, as you say, it looked like a university, but am I meant to think that that's a satire on people at university? Possibly, I don't know. It didn't look like Party World, certainly, but then it's not Party World because people aren't actually having a party. I'm not quite sure why you have to send them away at all, but no, I thought the direction was good. I thought the person playing Lindy did a good job of trying to come out the bubble and trying to walk. I liked Ricky September. I think, as has been said, probably the best bit in it. So I think there was, and at base, I think, as Michelle was saying, there was lots of good ideas. It just, Russell, what on earth are you doing?
Yeah, Michelle, not Michelle. Sorry for a second, Rachel. You've remembered your thought, haven't you?
Yeah. It was pretty slick. That is for sure. The only thing that direction wise, because the director would have had a say in the costume as well as the producers. The one thing that really let it down was this wig. I'm sorry, I have major beef with this wig. It was very distracting all the way through the episode. There's a side shot. I don't think you've probably got it here. I had it on my video that I did on my channel, but it's like the top of the wig is not actually in the correct place. They needed to, it looks like here it's too short. It needs to be like brought more forward, and I just think it was very poorly placed and it was very distracting. And I feel like they had that same problem with Ruby in the previous episode when they aged her up, and the placement of that hairband. they needed to work on that. And it looks like they've tried to over-direct some hair towards the front with the fringe to give her a more rounded face. But the direction that they gave to her, like Callie Cook, her name, she was actually really, really good. Like, I like the fact that she was very unlikable. However, because she betrayed Ricky September, it was a bit unsurprising. I kind of expected it. But I do think, like, overall in the terms of direction, some of the VFX and all of that, it was pretty slick.
Yeah.
I mean, the point where her headband actually ends like right about here, and on a woman, that's not going to hold anything. It's like actually going to stay in. Hairbands go all the way back down behind her ears.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
At the end of the season, we're going to have Rachel do like a countdown of the 5 worst wigs.
You see, and I'm pretty sure here that her pin curls, because they're called pin curls, that you with her natural hair, she would have had it all pinned to her head and then a wig cap put on. I can guarantee that they're sitting correctly in this one. I just think it's the wig placement.
Why has he gone for, he wanted this, it's almost like the Aryan race. Why has he gone for all this blonde and pastel and everything? I know it's the time machine, the Eloy and all the rest of it. He's gone for that element. But H.G. Wells did it better. Yeah.
Is it like perfection? They see themselves as perfect.
Yeah. Well, that's it.
No dark.
Yeah, I mean, the time machine thing is this is Russell letting you see all of the influences. And it's, you can go through it and go, oh, look, that's that. And, we're getting the Bridgerton episode next week, etc. But the rest of it is very derivative.
Can I also say the other thing he does not look like a 27-year-old person. He's got a lot of makeup on him.
I literally just pinged that through into the private chat.
The other thing I didn't like in these bubble shots is that guy who looked like he just got back from the yacht club, where he's wearing the sweater tied around his polo shirt. You showed him before on one of these. I thought, boy, that really dates this show. That's like from the 80s.
Well, that's what I mean. I just think it was. I mean, Cinnamon has said it a few times. It was, if this is aiming at Generation Z and kind of saying something interesting to them, I think it was insulting them and patronizing them. I mean, this is too fickle, too superficial. It's very, very strange. Now, as we do, Vogue. So,
hey, I'm vintage now. I'm almost 40. I'm getting vintage.
Itsy bitsy teeny.
Oh no!
It's kind of like how, like right now, every so many decades, certain aesthetics come in. Is how we think that decade really looked. We think the decade of the 80s looked like Miami Vice, when Miami Vice was not
looks like,
and when everything was actually really brown and earth tones. But we think the 80s was this neon bubblegum pink.
But that's when it ages it, because the 1960s version of the Time Machine, they were all sat on rocks with blonde hair in pastels, and really what we're doing here was a kind of 1960s throwback. And as some people have said in the thread ages ago, you'd think in the future, which is supposed to be that some of the racism has been dealt with and other things have been settled, rather than like it is.
That's where I had the most issue with that. I would kind of a hope that we're better rangers of our nature, that in the future we would be in a much better place. I also thought it was funny, and I thought they were mocking him in the beginning, where she's going through and it's like, my clothing is sustainable. I got this and I got this, and this is where I'm. If she's talking about her clothing, and I thought this was going to be a parody of online culture and those who are trying to be influencers, because it was just so shallow and vapid of, my clothing is sustainable, so it's earth friendly, and I thought that's what they were going with this.
Well, just to remind people, there's ways you can contact us on SenseSphere. There they all are. I'll let you pause that later if you really do want to text us, email us, or whatever. But I actually just wanted, since we're looking at criteria 3, if I click my right buttons, I'm just going to lazily go through as I feel roughly. Yes, just so everybody can see how we are scoring on this, you might find it interesting. That's where Dot and Bubble came up to. So we're just about to judge the third criteria, which is obviously whether it engaged you, whether it kind of made you tense or laugh or whatever it's supposed to do. But there you go. That's the panel.
Damn.
And you can see how Devil's Court is so far disconnected from everything else. You can see that you could argue, there is an argument that's, if you're just taking on our marks, that since Boom, there has been a gradual improvement. That's all you can say from that. But what I will show everybody in the thread and the panel as well is when everybody in my panel says, or I'm given outstanding for criteria 1 or good for criteria 2, I add each one up. So only from 5 episodes, there's only been 7 times in total when a panelist has said anything was outstanding, and most of them were for production values in criteria 2. You can see it is really starting to kind of coalesce around improvement needed 28 times. And it's even Stevens good to oblivion, which again, when we were talking about the ratings, that's hardly helpful. That's hardly where they want to be. I'm just clicking through because I'm being really lazy this time. So when I'm going to ask you about your kind of thoughts on engagement, just like I want to ask everybody in the thread, it makes no sense. You've got newspapers saying Doctor Who's shock dot and bubble ending is Ncuti Gatwa's most stunning moment. We've talked about that. Others says the story is problematic. You get discussions. That's the RTD one about what people think. I won't go over that again now. There's RTD with one of the designs of the slug. And of course,
Which one's the slug?
Gosh, that's low. So on this one, Ncuti said he was really wanting one of the Doctor Who episodes to actually address race. So he's happy it did. You can't ignore my chocolateness, as he says. My God, I don't know how we can talk like. I know he says that. He says that. Look, definitely evidence. And so, yeah, it would be essential to explore race with his tenure. It's something that I would want to do. And I don't think you can ignore it. You can't ignore my blah, blah, blah. I don't really like that at all. And then it talks about, obviously, how Lindy, talks about voodoo and all the rest of it. And some of the reviews were happy with it. You've got one verdict here. Dot and Bubble is a bold yet flawed episode of Doctor Who. Uneven tone. Creative monster design showed some intrigue. Overall execution leaves much to be desired. The underuse of the Doctor and Ruby highlights the limited length of season 1, blah, blah, blah. So, obviously, I need to ask you yourselves whether you were engaged, whether your scoring is big or not. I might as well start with you. Where did you feel on this one? Engaged?
Yeah, I mean, I thought, sort of as I said earlier, I thought the run through of the first part of it, the first 30 minutes of it were engaging. There's an awful lot of targets. I think it's interesting, Michelle, highlighting the stuff about the sustainability. Because again, I thought we're about, do something on that. There were a number of times I thought you could have done it. But I thought it was quite well done. As Rachel was saying, that I liked the direction. I didn't mind the pastel colours. I thought that was fine for what it was. I thought it was a bit of parody. And then it just all went to shit.
Yeah. Say how you feel.
Yeah.
Gary, where would
point.
you?
Mine, and again, I'm starting to be self-conscious about how negative that I'm sounding. I really, for engagement, I gave what I gave the whole episode, which for me was a 0, because honestly, I was bored throughout. I wasn't engaged enough with the dilemma. I was too distracted by various things, like Millie that, I wasn't meant to be focused on. And then at the end, we get that totally, all the heavy-handed, preachiness. I wasn't unclear on what was trying to be said versus if it was that social media can be bad, get out of your bubble. Okay, well, I think everybody probably already knows that. And if it's racism is bad, well, we know that. I just think that, and then at the end with the kind of sledgehammer stuff. This is supposed to be an escapist, fun, family science fiction show, not a show that is just tied down to all these heavy-handed current day political issues. I think it's just killing it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, so I'm trying to see who I've gone to. Rachel, on the engagement and your judgment of it.
I gave it a 4. I was engaged, but I was a little bit bored by it. Yeah.
And just so while Rachel's explaining, you can see that 4 is the lowest of needs improvements. Just so you can see how this is accumulated. Go on,
Yeah,
Rachel.
and bearing in mind that I originally gave you lower scores than this, didn't I?
Yes.
And then I changed my mind actually, because I still think like conceptually it is better than Boom. The concepts were there. I think 73 Yards as a story idea is a much better story. I think this one was a bit more concise in execution. Yeah, like I said, concepts were there. The idea that technology is the enemy is a great idea. It just should have started sooner. And I feel like I've already said this, but like the addressing of the racism should have actually been done in different episodes. I don't think it needed to be done here if you really are going to go down that route. The language was a bit childish. There was bad puns, and it was message heavy. I felt like with the script, so I'm talking about the script now. I don't know why I went on to that, but I did. I felt like they tried to, even though they didn't do it very well, they tried to integrate it into the story a little bit more. And they were trying to do a show and not tell, but it still came across as a bit preachy, if you know what I mean. So it worked better, but it didn't. Yeah.
My problem when I'm judging this criteria was that I've seen this plot too many times now. Now you could say in Doctor Who that running down corridors is a stereotype, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
But really, it always is. He builds the world up so you can see what a normal day is for Lindy, and then, I mean, actually, in the opening credits, he had the slug there. So I mean, you thought, oh gosh, a bit of suspense. She's going to die immediately, except we knew she wasn't because she was the star of the show. But I just felt it's always set up the world. He yabbers on. David Tennant was asked to yabber on as well with blah, 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 technobabble stuff. Said it fast so nobody kind of paws over it and analyzes it. And then suddenly there's an escape button or do this, and then everybody's down there. And to me, we've done that with Space Babies. Devil's Cord was obviously just something out there. Boom, stand him still, and he still works it out. Yet he still stood on the landmine in the first place. I mean,
so, quick question then: would it be worth? Because sometimes I feel like it's too simple, too rushed, and it's not challenging enough, and like with the resolutions and all of that. Would it be worth then perhaps looking at classic and maybe going back to maybe not the 6-7 episodes per story type of storytelling, but looking at perhaps going back to having 2-parters for each episode, like they did with Black Orchid, because obviously Black Orchid couldn't be across 3 or 4. It would have been too long for it, but 2 was enough. Would it be worth going back to that so it's not rushed?
I think to do development, and Cinnamon's asking why we had 2 episodes where the Doctor's hardly in it. Of course, as I asked Rachel, I think last week about schedules and all the rest of it, it does seem crazy to me that obviously they employed Shooty and that he's not in 2 of the episodes.
Yeah,
really, he's not central to it. But yeah, I know it's a problem, I think, and I don't think there was enough suspense in that episode at all. I really don't think. We had deaths, but because they were so slow and it was daylight, as I've said, I didn't feel as though there was any real tension. Even that moment, classic Doctor Who, when she was hiding behind that little bit of wall, her hiding moment. In classic Doctor Who, I can see Genesis of the Daleks when they're hiding behind a pillar and the Daleks go past.
Yeah.
The classic hiding that you do in Doctor Who. In this one, it's as if there's 2 slugs were having a natter. It doesn't work. And this is my worry that RTD, who's leading this ship, seems to have forgotten how to write Doctor Who and what is Doctor Who. He seems to enjoy the episodes when the Doctor's not really in it.
Yeah.
And as when Rachel was saying about episodes that had germ of good ideas, I remember saying that even for the Jinx episode, that there is a good Doctor Who story to be had about the effects of a world where music is removed. That is a solid idea. I think one thing that we have to ask, and we probably will when we're talking about the season as a whole, is, are these stories, as we're getting them, are these stories that are worth being told? Are they worth writing and producing and airing? I mean, is it a story that has an inherent worth to be told? And from what we're getting, I would say that the ideas that we've kind of come up with in terms of the germ is okay, but the way it's carried out is just not.
And it's a bit like what Mr. Wick is saying. I'll bring Hugh in. I don't think he's forgotten at all. I think he's just showing off for an audience that doesn't exist, which makes me very sad. I think, yeah, he can still write stories, I assume, but I think the issues seem to be more important. And as long as you've got a recognizable linear kind of plot, which is you start there, you run away, you go there, bang. It doesn't matter, Hugh. I mean, this is substandard Doctor Who this year, isn't it?
Yeah. So, I mean, there is obviously a bigger story that is being told, and there are going to be resolutions later on, and that's part of the reason why I'll stick with it for the rest of this season to try and see what he does. But I thought that whenever Stephen Moffat effectively did that properly, as opposed to Russell's story arcs at the start, it suffered quite a lot because there's too much complexity. Why the silence will fall happens at the start of one series, and you don't know what the silence is till the next series. It's not that interesting, and so much of this is let down. I mean, Space Babies was just awful. I don't think there was anything particularly to be saved from that, but there are germs in the other ideas which have been let down either because they're being sacrificed to the overall story arc, or they're being sacrificed to Russell wanting to put in something about racism in a place that it doesn't work.
Yeah. Gary, what do you think of Gareth Morgan's comment here? The Doctor himself as a concept is problematic now, so they are making it less Doctor content, making him the lesser element, a guest star character in his own show. It is starting to feel like that, and I really do think, from when RTD said that the Doctor is pompous, so he has to make him not pompous, and he's got all his issues, that I think he's got a problem with the Doctor being the Doctor as we know. He has to be somehow different or a sideshow.
If the showrunner or the writers, which I guess this season is pretty much the same thing, don't know how to write the Doctor, and I mean the real Doctor, effectively, that is 100% in my mind their deficiencies, not because the Doctor as a character has had its day or there's nothing else interesting to find out about the character. And I'm talking about the character as we knew, let's say up through Capaldi. There's still endless ways if you create the right situation. Even when the story, even when the series was off the air, how many years of everybody coming up with all of the New Adventures novels, which was stretching the show in a way that it had not done before, or all the missing adventures that are still coming out. There's still endless stories to be told about the real character. And I think that if you're trying to say, well, the Doctor as a concept has kind of had its day, no, just because the people running it now are, as Hugh said, creatively exhausted, which I totally agree with.
Yeah.
That says more about them than about the character.
Yeah, I think that it's Buggin's turn, as we've said before, and it needs to move on. Right, while we've got Susan Twist in front of us, is there anybody? I mean, Hugh, you said to see how some of these loose ends are kind of tidied up, but we know Mrs. Flood's in season 2, so she won't be sorted out. Are you really into this thread, the Susan Twist who appears in every episode? Are you thinking, wow, this is interesting?
No. So I think there's an idea behind Ruby Sunday, which is quite interesting, although I'm bored with having yet another companion who is much more interesting than the Doctor and the mystery is theirs. I will sort of like pick up on what was said earlier about the sexualization. I think having a Doctor who's overly sexualized creates real problems in terms of safeguarding, which we've had the discussion on in terms of sexuality one, and it drives me up though. The Susan Twist thing just feels to me that he saw there was an actress called Susan Twist, and he thought that would be a thing.
Well, Michelle, let me throw you this, right? This is Melanie Weston Investigates is in the thread. I've told her I'm going to throw a theory in, right? Here's a theory she's got. So let's have a bit of fun here, right? Here's the theory, right? After watching the episode Dot and Bubble, I have come up with a new theory purely based on this episode. We know in this episode that the actress Susan Twist is playing Lindy Pepperbean's mum. Now, we know in the episode that only the wealthy kids go to Find Time, which would mean that the parents must also be wealthy to be able to afford to send their children to Find Time. So what if her wealth, with her wealth, she was able to purchase an old TARDIS to go after the Doctor, but a TARDIS malfunctions and explodes, just like at the beginning of the fourth Doctor adventure, City of Death, when a ship explodes, blah, 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 blah. The Doctor's TARDIS and Ruby are somehow being told where to go to keep meeting her, but for some reason, every time we see her, she has the same face, but is playing a different character every time. We know that when the Doctor's TARDIS lands on Abbey Road the second time round and they both get out, we hear the TARDIS making a groaning noise. I think it can sense the other TARDIS, Susan Swift character, who in that episode was the tea lady. Just throwing a theory out there, as Melanie Weston Investigates is allowed to do as a fan. Just before anybody wants to come in and respond to this, I've said I still think there's an issue with the sledgehammer TARDIS. I do think there's that. I've seen, Rachel, you're talking about whether Ruby is the Doctor, possibly, as an alternative.
Yeah, it was just a wild one that I threw in.
That has been banning about on Twitter. I've seen this on Reddit.
Wait,
there's something going on, and I'm also going on the theory that this isn't really the real Doctor. I mean, we've had the bioregeneration; he splits out. I mean, and we know. Let's go back all the way far. We've never been explained why the TARDIS kicked the 13th Doctor out. So, are any of these really the Doctor?
It worries me, though, that when you've got a black Doctor, not that I want to look at his skin color, that you might treat him like that he's not the real Doctor. That's problematic, surely.
Well, I mean, this has been issues that it's not the fans. This is issues that have been developing from the production. He wasn't given his own regeneration story. He wasn't given his own moment to find his own costume, find his own personality. Ncuti, as the Doctor, has been robbed, as I was messaging you, has been robbed of a lot of things that make the Doctor the Doctor. And that's not fair to Ncuti.
So does anyone buy into parts of what Melanie Weston is saying? That Susan Twist is in every episode. So is there some element where time traveler or, cutting across?
No, this is Melanie. I mean, credit to you. This is kind of a fascinating theory. She actually likens it to the beginning of City of Death. I'm thinking that the theory kind of, to me, combines the exploding TARDIS from the Matt Smith era with Clara jumping into the thing and the Clara shards. So it's kind of those two kind of combined. The one thing I'll say, and I'm not, because who knows how it's going to resolve. It always seems to me that the theories that the wonderfully imaginative fans come up with are always far more overly complex than what is eventually resolved. And I point to season 6, because I remember back in the day, everybody was coming up with all these wonderfully convoluted theories about how the Doctor won't die. And what did the solution turn out to be? Well, that wasn't the Doctor that got shot. It's like everybody, the fans seem to love to go from A to B to L to Z, back to B by way of Q. But then the writers seem to just kind of go straight from A to B. Yeah. So I think it's whatever they come up with, it's going to be 100 times more simplistic than we're thinking it.
Yeah, because as Hugh always tells me when I waffle on sometimes in the early days in streams, when I was waffling on about what I would call a narrative arc, Hugh pulled me up and said they're not narrative arcs that RT does. They're just daft little clues, aren't they? That, like,
yeah. So I mean, the Bad Wolf thing was it's just writing Bad Wolf and then doing something at the end. That's not the fact that the Daleks appeared in long game didn't really make any sense whatsoever. So. But I think he's making an effort. I do think this is all influenced by what Moffat did, and RTD has come back and seen what Moffat did, and to an extent what Chibnall did to make more of an arc, and is making an effort. I also think he's taking the piss a bit with the Susan Twist thing, but I don't care about companions having to have this huge amount of mystery. It drove me up the wall with Clara and he sort of even in terms of the crack in time, it's too clever and not actually clever.
Yes, like I think I said earlier, it's as if he's backslapping. You know, oh, I've included that. But then, yes, but was it engaging? Did it grab people? And as we've said with the ratings, or whether we just do it with our own eyes, it doesn't seem to be doing that.
Could I just interrupt? So, KD Smash, I did not literally beg for RTD. Stop even talking nonsense like that. If you're going to write crap in comments, I will support your right to do so, but just writing generalized crap like that is entirely wrong. I was really disappointed when he was coming back because I think he did a really good job when he did it the first time, and he was just coming back for the wrong reasons.
Yeah, you're projecting other streams and other people because we've only been going since December. So actually, RTD had already got the job. So nothing on SenseFree has been about bringing RTD back because we didn't even have a program then. So I think you're projecting from another show. SenseFree doesn't do that. So no. Rachel, are you bothered about this Susan Twist at all? Because I'm getting sick of seeing her. I'll be honest.
I think they need to sort of wrap it up. Like, who is she? Like, get to the point. But to be honest with you, I haven't really paid sort of much attention whenever she has appeared because I've been sort of underwhelmed to middling about this series, and yeah. I really don't have much to say about her, to be honest.
Let's guess what she's going to be next week. Is she going to be one of the musicians at the Bridgerton dance? Is she going to be...
she's going to be probably somebody attending the ball.
I think, Gary...
in the background. Play Freebird!
Gary, I heard in Rogue that she's a portrait.
A moving portrait, like in Harry Potter?
Or Scooby-Doo?
Or the Haunted Mansion?
Oh, yeah.
I just think it's a shame because I'm like every fan. I like to see little moments like this, but I feel as though recently it's just, there we are again.
Oh, there was this theory that possibly, I don't think it's going to happen now, that she was actually Ruby's mum. I saw that going around somewhere. But, yeah.
I just, like I said last week, I just wanted
to pay
Michelle
off.
said, I just don't care. I don't care about this art.
Yeah. And this is where we are, isn't it? I mean, we've judged an episode. We try and judge they are as objective criteria as I can get. Yes, everybody brings their subjectivities to it because you do. I mean, you can't help that. But we try our best. We certainly don't meander. And
I think the thing is, I'm not caring about the arc or Susan Twist because the stories aren't good. Yeah. So they have to be the first thing, and then the arc can add to that. But if they aren't good, then the rest of it isn't interesting.
You see, okay, so JNT, sorry, Hugh, to cut you off there, but JNT, when he started introducing, a bit more for the characters to do, having the occasional character companion arc, that's not actually a bad idea. It was quite good to see them getting a bit more development than just being through the audience eyes. But he also didn't go with not with doing it all the time. So can we actually get to the point like where it happens in New Who occasionally, and then we go back to the Doctor and then bring it back? Can we do that? Is that possible? I mean, all the companions are significant to the Doctor in some way anyway, regardless, and they all make the Doctor who he is, and they all make the show in some way. So
and I'm happy with that. It's the fact that they become the mystery and the story rather than part of the story. So
the companion was supposed to be you, and
yes,
you are important in your own life, but that doesn't mean that you have this, great world-changing significance, but you are still significant enough that you can make the Doctor better.
Yeah, and the best companion story arc that I think that we've had ever in New Who was Donna Noble's.
Yeah.
So we got
said
to
the
the
best?
Beast. The best so far,
The best.
yeah. Was Donna Noble's until we got to the Star
But she
Beast,
was a
where they
normal
ruined
person
it.
who changed the world for the better and made the Doctor better. She was just a temp, she was just a temp.
And I think it had more impact because it was Catherine Tate, and everyone was like, "Oh my goodness, she can act," which we knew she could. But
you see, since 2005, because of this obsession with the companions, for good or bad, and I can see Donna Noble was a standout for it as an example. Rose, it went too far with all that stuff. But since 2005 to now, the companions are really starting to overshadow everything and the whole plot and everything. And I do find that the Doctor, we've lost the Doctor. If you go back to a lot of the stories, I'm thinking, when was there a good Doctor story? I feel as though I've been waiting a long time for a good Doctor story. And yes, we've mentioned earlier whether RTD finds the Doctor problematic as a concept now, and he's just sitting on this job to do what he can. Because it does feel like Chibnall, Moffat, and RTD are having more interest with the companion than they do the Doctor. And even Moffat, who can do his clever timey-wimey, the Impossible Girl and everything, in the end, the Doctor was upset that she apparently died and all that. Remember after Clara's Face the Raven? The Doctor is just too imbued in this emotional stuff. Never was like that. And that's all down to these three last showrunners who seem to think that's more interesting than, as you say, the Doctor's an alien, and we see it through the eyes of the companion. But to
be fair to Chris Chibnall, he was an equal opportunities person, and he made everyone boring.
That's very true.
Bravo.
Well, I was going to say earlier is they forget who the show is named after. They forget that the show's title is Doctor Who. It's the Doctor, and there's this article that came out. I saw it in my feed on social media, and I forgot to send it to you. And it says, season 14 of Doctor Who shows that the Doctor is not the main character.
But that's why I asked earlier about whether this is New Who, and whether you would have watched this now if you just entered this world a few episodes ago. I wouldn't have checked into this. It's too, I don't know, it's not appealing, it's not suspenseful. There's better TV out there. People aren't watching TV anyway, so it needs to be good and thrilling, and it's not doing it. And actually thinking that all the old fans will love all these threads is becoming very, very, very tedious.
With all the crying, it should just be Dr. Boo-hoo.
Yeah. Which is which is, as you know, that's my that's as I've called it. So there's not much more I can say about this one. It is a problem. Rogue will be different, I know. Wednesday we will do a final word on Dot and Bubble if we need one. We will preview Rogue, and we will obviously talk about the Web of Fear. Come on, a nice bit of nostalgia. The Web of Fear time flash, because we're hitting an anniversary there. And of course, we'll talk about, anyone got an answer now in the thread? Which is the best master story? And that's got so many problems and complexities, because how far do you go with this? Do you have to say it's the original? Do you say, no, there were some improvements? Is Deadly Assassin all right? And all the rest. There's so much. So it's going to be an interesting debate, because Yeah, the best master story. We'll keep our powder dry, so to speak. So thanks everybody in the thread. It's been very, very, very lively. You can always tell when you've had a polarized episode. You can always tell. So thank you, everybody. You know what we're going to do now, which is just to liven us up. I'm not sure if I can be livened up tonight. I feel really as if my mind's scrambled. So we'll say good night. We'll see you all Tuesday Saloon on Tuesday. That would make sense, wouldn't it? And obviously Wednesday, 7 p.m. When we'll talk nostalgia. Okay. Night, everyone.
Night. Like and subscribe.
Good night.
Yes. Like and subscribe, please, if you want us back. And we can have a whole...
I'll do my slug dance.
Yes. Feel the love, everybody. Feel the love.
Yeah, feel the love. Love.
Like and subscribe. There she is.
Hey.
Always voguing.
Always voguing. I love it that
Bye.
Yes.